We are here in Denver for the 5th annual AEC Integration Summit, bringing together architects, engineers, contractors, software, and here to solve our shared pains and turn them into shared gains.
The problem that we're solving in this year's session is one of the worst problems ever, change orders. We're trying to find ways to measure not only the root causes of change orders, but the impacts of them.
So every year we've had a different theme. This year's theme is all around song albums.
I'm on the team to changes and have a lot of experience from the small business trade contractor side on how change management and the constant volume of changes in construction really impacts us and our ability to be able to do good work.
Most times when you're working in the field or you're working in your day-to-day life, you're only thinking about your own task and how you view your specific situation. But somebody else is gonna be viewing that same scenario that you're dealing with completely differently.
In that protection, that's where a lot of miscommunication occurs across the job. There's a joy in the power of play where you get to interact with people that are smarter than you and are more knowledgeable, because at this point, I think this industry could benefit from a lot more collaboration than competition.
How do we actually understand how to give other people the data they need to understand the changes in the time that owners or general contractors or other trade partners might need to mitigate those damages?
Ironically, this whole meeting, if you want to call it that, it flowed almost like change orders themselves. On day one, it was like each of us were in our own cars, driving on our own roads, in fog. We couldn't see anything. And then we went out to the bar and got smashed. And somehow that put us all in day two on the same bus on a nice clear day, and we actually came up with something pretty cool. So I'm not going to explain how we got to this beautiful golden nugget. Jackson is gonna lead us down this path.
Hi, I'm Jackson, and I have a change order problem. So take a higher view real quick. So Peyton, we recorded all of the discussions over the last 2 days and have been putting that into Claude and then digesting it into Claude to kind of capture the discussions and create the framework and really take this into a more structured system. And so what we just did in the last 5 minutes is took his 2 days of data and had Claude develop this PowerPoint to help go through the conversation. So finding from day one, status of the industry, status of the team, uncomfortable, like Chad just mentioned. And we're working through a paradox. Ambiguity is a bug and a feature in the system. Risk transfer is the name of the game. Every party in the supply chain is rationally incentivized to keep the next party in the dark and to pay a premium for the privilege.
So the longer a change situation takes to resolve, costs go up as a result of that. And oftentimes what we see, if you look at the bar chart on the left, just represented by the $60 million, if that issue and the base costs are a small portion of that, every party kind of builds their own contingency behind the scenes to try and cover the cost of that. If we can reduce that variation as well as significantly shorten the time to resolution, one of the ways we thought about doing that was creating means and incentives within contract structures to reward people on quickness to resolution, because we know if we don't do that, there's just costs that increase to all parties.
The big thing too is on the left-hand side, uncertainty is priced in, but it's also compounding because everyone's uncertain, and so you get a compounding effect that impacts the total volume. That's effectively a tax on the industry. On the right-hand side, you can see the base cost goes up, but that's because we're more certain and we've actually rooted out the actual issues to actually complete said scope of work while giving ourselves a shared incentive. You know, this is high level in a concept, but we were just talking about different credit-based systems that could incentivize resolution speed while also offering a better, let's not just rush and throw money into the price. And on top of that, if you set aside contingency, if you plan for shit to happen, isn't shit guaranteed to happen. That was literally picked up in one of the sayings. Yeah. So that $60 million example, we actually walked through. We talked through the example, talked about how a potential change impact could affect someone of the two parties, and it could be a $1.5 million rework. And for the $5 million framer, that's a lot of money to carry in damages while also trying to execute the work. And over here, I don't know if you want to talk about what our anchor was and then how we split apart to work in contest not reported and work in contest disputed.
Yeah, so of all the issues related to change orders, we came down with the simple fact that the main problem, work in contest is unpaid. If we could just fix that problem, all the other ones would be solved. And we looked at two subsets of that, so two anchors there, that the work in contest is not reported and the work in contest is disputed. There were some scenarios around that when work is not reported, there's some scenarios that we could not fix, and I don't think we want to fix. One of those being where a framing contractor in this example just eats the work, doesn't report it, and they just do it because of the nature of the relationship. They want to make sure that they get the next job, so they protect the relationship and they just take the hit, right? So it's not necessarily a problem that we do want to solve. That's a human issue. With work in contest that's disputed, we went down through all of the whys, and that led us to the measurable goal of we want a transparent work in contest a transparent work in contest management that delivers a maximum 30-day resolution period and a maximum 5% variance between the percent complete and cost to complete. So if we can achieve that, and we're going to get into the rockets on how we achieve that. But if we can achieve that, this problem tends to go away. Now, there was something outside of the conversation that was captured in this that Alex mentioned, and it is worth mentioning because it's a conversation that's probably going to continue beyond today. Everything we're talking about today is more reactive. It's a reactive solution to this problem. But Alex brought up the fact that the trades themselves should be watching each other's backs to be more proactive and act as an early detection mechanism to make sure that this problem technically doesn't have to exist if everybody's got each other's backs. So that's another conversation that we intend to have to make sure that we're proceeding with a proactive solution.
To take us back to where we started on day one, our objective was how might we measure the cause and impact of a change in ways that promote standardizing reporting so that all stakeholders get a clearer view of project health. So the goal was, I think, as we move towards trying to find, the future state, what this means for the industry, this graph got generated to show, basically speed to lead on acting on changes and incentivizing stakeholders in the value chain to be able to move quicker. That savings that you see, or the potential savings you saw on the first slide, speed to lead is everything on getting to change order visibility. So I'll pass it to Peyton.
So we're talking about the incentive chain and what each party within the stake. We talked a little bit about this last year in the supply chain. Obviously, we are sponsored by NASBP. We wanted to kind of showcase how the different incentives work within the supply chain and why someone would unreport or not make visible to a change order. When we say 5% variance between percent complete, we all know that there's different measurements of percent complete. There's schedule, there's cost, there's billable amount. And when those 3 or 4 measures of percent complete vary, there's typically an issue either in the allocation of units, cost, billing, that are not in alignment. And so we believe work in contest helps reduce down that variance. And if there is variance, it's oftentimes an indication that the health of the project is not cash flowing appropriately or flowing in either cash or in production. Price doesn't equal cost, scope disagreement, lack of documentation, lack of notification, maintain relationship. These are all things that factor into why something gets unresolved at a later time and the cost is impacted.
So then the way we think about this is we wanted to categorize every change, and we believe there's 3 buckets that you can land every change into on a job site. And this is less so of like, was it a design change? Was it unforeseen conditions? It's more of a way to think about like the nature of the change. And there's 3 types: solicited, which is like your typical, you get a bulletin, there's a direction from somebody to go proceed with a change, that's solicited. Field directed would be things happen out in the field, that's typically tracked by T&M. And then the big one, which results in most of the disputes, is unsolicited. So that's scenarios where a contractor believes they should be owed money for something. They report that up to the GC or the GC to the owner. It's the same idea, but that results in the most dispute. But we talked about this shared space to communicate changes between the parties to get to that speed of resolution. And then we think if the surety has a say to require that to happen, that would kind of create the incentive around having that shared space to do it. And then through all of our discussion, you guys saw a little bit of what was vibe coded earlier. We expanded upon that. So we're going to show what our proof of concept looks like for this idea.
It might look somewhat familiar because you've now seen 2 versions, one from Todd and one from us, but we took the context from the conversations from earlier, talking through kind of a high-level proof of concept. But one of the biggest things is if you could create a shared ledger that validates the impact to changes in a way that puts a light on the issues and expedites a dashboard for speed to resolution, you would be able to solve a lot of issues that go unresolved much quicker. And if the surety was invested in something in that nature, many of the issues that happen would probably be resolved because they're not hidden. You can see here we have the changes themselves, key metrics in relation to the % complete on those changes, those that are impacted by said change, and I think a CDX export format. I know I'd added that. That's interesting. Yeah, thanks. Another big piece too here is to visually see the stakeholders and their impact. I think a lot of times it's nice to see the up and downstream effects between those that are impacted by either what we call an out of scope, unsolicited item, or in scope between in between subcontractors and GC. It's nice to categorize and have root cause analysis on that particular issue as it's getting validated and disputed. It's visible to everyone within a shared ledger, which would then backfeed or inform people on what they should be accounting for in their work, in their WIP, basically.
One of the things that keeps me coming back to the CPC and the Integration Summit is just the amount of fun that we have talking about serious problems and really trying to tackle very serious business issues. But the fun of doing karaoke and last night being awarded the Dork of the Year, that was a complete surprise and quite an honor. And I think having fun, when we're here, kind of bringing that fun and that vulnerability is what Nathan mentioned last night, and it was really quite an honor to get recognized for my efforts to dive in and just be transparent, be vulnerable, and say, hey, here's where I am and where I've been, and here's the challenges that I see at my small business. It's been really cool to see that that's been accepted as value add.
We're all playing in the same sandbox, but I mean, there's a lot of sand to play in. So it's nice to be in a co-petition, not competition, and I think that's what needs to be spread out through the industry. It's nice to connect with industry folk that are dealing with the same things that we've all been dealing with.
You can sign up to learn more at constructionprogress.org and keep track at the AEC Integration Summit or AEC Summit.